Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming Pioneer 2K RCQ IQ. I'm Tandy, joined by Matt. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
And round one in the books, pretty fun match. We watched a little bit of a little bit of alteration combo with the Archfiend. We watched a little bit of the Grinding Ignis combo, take
Oh
down
yeah.
our Young Dingo Pioneer Expert, playing that Azorius Lotus Field deck. And then ultimately we watched a draw between Gearhole Creativity and Mono Green Devotion. And honestly, 6 different awesome decks, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what you get to expect when you watch Pioneer. Just
Right.
a huge breath of fresh air in terms of just like number of raw playable decks, and all have their own unique identity, and they're all pretty sweet.
Right.
What are we watching this round though, Matt?
Well, we're gonna be seeing another new deck. Joey Lunds on one side playing the Boros Pia deck that I know you've been playing a lot of.
Yeah, and he's also going to be playing the Runaway Steamkin version that I've been working on my stream and on my Patreon over the last couple of months. I think Runaway Steamkin really punishes the mono green decks for not being interactive, and
Right.
allows you to generate this like kind of combo style turn with things like the draw twos, as well as Showdown of the Scalds. Showdown putting a counter on the Runaway Steamkin
Oh
means
yeah.
you only need to play 1.5 spells to get 3 mana, and so you can just have just monumental turns thanks to Runaway Steamkin. You don't want to overload on him. I usually go 3. Sometimes I play 4 if I want to get a little frisky. He's playing 3 today, and we're going to see if it's going to be good against his opponent.
One of our guests this weekend, Corey Baumeister, playing Mono Green.
Yeah, so Corey's on Mono Green. Normally he would be doing his backpack stream, but unfortunately, more technical difficulties today and wasn't unable to stream. So we're going to have him basically on backup feature match all day. But starting right now, we're going to have him on the primary feature match playing that Mono Green Devotion deck. The players are set and ready in the feature match area. Let's head on down. On your left, Corey B, Mono Green. On your right, his opponent, you can't see him.
Joey
okay.
Lunds.
Joey Lunds playing the Boros Pia deck. Whenever these players are ready, they are good to go. Now, I'll say this. I played a good bit with Boros Pia. Chain of the Rocks is a huge deal. And for Mono Green Devotion specifically.
Right.
And here we have a 1-drop from Joey Lunds, and Baumeister matches with Llanowar, or Elvish Mist, excuse me. They're basically the same card. It's fine.
Yeah. You're fine. We do see Steamkin in Joey's hand, but we're going to start out with a Ren's Resolve, I believe, to get some cards off the top.
Yeah, and this is going to essentially just be looking for removal spells to kill the elf. We found another Reckless Draw as well as a Chain to the Rock, so if Joey has white mana, can knock off something like Old Growth Troll next turn. Ooh, a big pickup for Corey, though, something that can unlock Chain to the Rocks, and we have Boseiju drawn. Let's see what Corey wants to do on his turn 2.
Right, and this is an interesting turn for Corey when your opponent just reveals a removal spell off the top. You really don't want to jam a troll into it. Luckily, Corey has an alternative in Wolfwillow Haven.
Yeah, and it looks like he's also going to be able to hold up the Boseiju this turn, so even if Chain to the Rocks does bust up the elf, can get it back if he wants to. We'll see what Joey Lunds wants to do. I would have loved to have seen him play that Runaway Steamkin before he starts playing the Reckless Draws. One of the strengths of it is getting it down before that so that you can start getting those counters on it, and ultimately start using the mana to cast more of them.
Right, and we see Joey here does pick up another interactive spell in Play with Fire. Let's see how he wants to allocate his mana here in these tight opening turns.
All right, we're going to tap 2. We're going to play another Reckless Draw. We're going to trigger Soulscar Mage. Finds Battlefield Forge, Battlefield Forge. That's white mana for the chain, and when we have land drops for the next 2 turns.
That's kind of exactly what you're looking for when you're jamming these impulse draw effects on the early turns, right?
Yeah.
Just free land drops. You're going to be able to play all your spells. Speaking of which, Chain to the Rocks.
Okay, and that's going to knock the elf off. And Soulscar Mage up to 3 power, so we're going to be attacking for 3. See if Corey wants to go ahead and use the Boseiju to unlock the elf, or if he's more interested in waiting, and he's going to go ahead and do it. So, blow up. You blow up the land, and the creature comes back. Chain of the Rocks goes to the graveyard. You don't want to target Chain of the Rocks. If you do, they get an extra land.
But can't target mountain. Boseiju can only target non-basic lands.
Ah, good call, good call.
So we see Corey here giving his opponent an opportunity to get a land. Joey, it seems like, elected not to get a land out of his deck. Don't know what that's about. Might have all the fetchables in his hand. But we see Corey following up using this elf for a Cavalier of Thorns. The perfect turn 4 play.
You can always fail to find, okay? If you don't want to go looking for a land, that's your prerogative. Corey,
Right.
Corey used Boseiju. It's your job to know, like, I go get a land.
Right.
Didn't go get it. Back Joey Lunge's way. We have a land drop with the Battlefield Forge we can play. Pia coming down here. Console Rebels. This one's going to allow for some Thopters, and this one is quite scary. If you're Corey B, reading it for the first time, could be pretty bad for you, but we're going to get a Thopter off the land drop.
Right. And it's just one of the smaller impressive things about this card that it even triggers off a land from exile.
Right.
So Joey getting to save that from the previous turn's Reckless Impulse and start churning out some aggro.
All right, what are we going to do with the other 2 mana? We can play Runaway Steamkin. We can play another Reckless Draw. We're going to go for another Reckless Draw. Top 2, a Steamkin and a Showdown of the Scald. So, potentially explosive next few turns for Joey Lands. Let's see if Corey can find a combo kill before this gets out of hand. Draws for turn.
And we did see Corey hit that Nykthos off the Cavalier last turn, exactly what he was looking for to enable a great follow-up here.
Has Oath of Nissa, we're going to be digging. A couple lands. Can't see what the third card is, but I see those forests, those beautiful unglued or unhinged forests.
Right, and Oath of Nissa, important here. First one's free with Nykthos.
That's true.
Get you the devotion right back. Same goes for Llanowar Elves.
Yep.
And Corey is now going to be able to do whatever he likes with, I count, 7 devotion.
All right, we're going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we can play Kiora for 4, go down to 4, untap, down to 2, up to...
The world is Corey's oyster.
I want to say 9, but who knows? Some number.
Some big number.
10 maybe. All right, down to 4. Here's Kiora. Ton of loyalty. Can untap stuff. Let's get Kiora on the screen. Let's talk about this card. This is, in my opinion, one of the linchpins of Mono Green Devotion. Kiora Behemoth Beckner. 3 mana. Ton of loyalty. Starts at 7. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. That counts when you cast them. It also counts when you find them off of things like Storm the Festival, even when you make a troll off of sacking it on a land. So Kiora has a lot of utility there, but also untapping target permanent targets Nykthos Shrine of Nyx quite often, making boatloads of mana, and we're all the way up to 10. And Corey Baumeister, what do you got to do?
What do you have, Corey? Yeah, Kiora is a great spot for her. Completely mana positive, going to be able to keep Corey's hand filled if he has anything to keep going with.
Woo!
Wow. Corey
Another
actually
Nykthos.
going even higher up on mana, going to be able to activate Nykthos for a 3rd time this turn.
Up to 16, I believe.
Right? 17 with that Lair of the Hydra. And if Corey has the perfect follow-up in Karn, we could see the game end right here, right now.
All right, now, you are a big deterministic guy, right? You know a lot of the schmoves when it comes to Mono Green. Why don't you explain what happens when you have Karn, 8 Devotion, and 12 mana floating?
So this Karn is going to likely get the Chain Veil out of Corey's sideboard. Corey's going to be able to cast and activate the Chain Veil, and then have 4 mana left over with which to activate a Kiora for a 2nd time. And the next Karn activation, thanks to this Chain Veil, is going to get Pestilent Cauldron. If Corey has multiple Planeswalkers in his graveyard, this will form 100% a loop for infinite mana and infinite life. But we did see the Cavalier of Thorns milled some cards earlier. We don't actually know if Corey has extra Planeswalkers at his disposal, so he might have to get creative and start finding other ways to gain resources off this Karn.
So might not be able to have a kill this turn, but certainly can still make a bunch of mana. We're going to use Kiora to untap the Nykthos after using it, and then we're going to go back up to 10 mana. We're going to be able to use the Karn the Great Crater again, and that's going to, with 10 mana, we could get something like Cityscape Leveler. We could return some stuff from our graveyard back to our hand via the backside of Pestilent Cauldron, which of course is Restorative Burst, and it exiles itself, so Karn can keep grabbing it over and over again. That's
right.
the gist, right? We're just Karn using a loophole. He says exile. He says grab from exile.
Yeah.
Restorative Burst exiles itself. The backside's a sorcery. The front side's an artifact. It's a real cheesy thing.
I'd call it a perfect mix.
Perfect mix. I mean, that's fair. All I know is that when I first started playing Mono Green Devotion, I got whooped by like Supreme Verdict a bunch.
Yeah.
And now you don't.
Yeah.
Now you win with a
Do
bunch
not
of
care about that card.
Planeswalkers.
We do see Corey goes for Restorative Burst. Let's see what's available to him in his graveyard.
Creature, land, or planeswalkers, you get 2 back. We get 2 3 drops. We're going to get a Pelucranos and an Old Growth Troll, and we have enough mana to play both. We're also going to get to draw 2 cards while we play them. That's going to increase our devotion count next turn by quite a bit and provide enough defense to maybe help us out here.
Right, and yeah, Corey's just deploying some great blockers for absolutely free. Going up the board can be very difficult for Joey to get anything done before Corey builds back up to a combo turn.
All right.
Taking a look at the Chainveil, just
One's an English copy.
I see.
Wants to see if it's stacks over the course of multiple turns, but it doesn't.
Right.
All right, so back Joey Lunds' way. We got Showdown of the Scalds. We got Runaway Steamkin. You have to imagine if he played a Runaway Steamkin on turn number 2, maybe this turn would be going a lot more differently.
Right. Let's see how Joey wants to commit his mana now, knowing that anything could really happen out of Corey's hand next turn.
Okay.
Will be Showdown of the Scalds.
All right, we're going to get the top 4 coming off, and we can play those until the end of the next turn. Steamkin, basically dead zone now since it was revealed last turn. We get another Pia, a land, a Kamano, and a Play with Fire. So we can go land and Play with Fire, and that'll give us 2 Thopters, so we can maybe check at least one of the Planeswalkers. The card in the Great Crater could go to the graveyard, and that might actually stop Corey from being able to combo next turn.
Exactly. Joey has some cheap interaction and a little bit of pressure here. Definitely building up to be able to take over the game if Corey has the wrong pieces in hand. Starting off with Sacred Foundry, triggering Pia, of course. And then, where is this Play with Fire going to go?
Yeah, so there are 2 reach creatures on Corey's side. The Plukernos has reach as well as the Cavalier. So those Thopter tokens, we can send 3 of them at the Karn to kill it. We can send a Play with Fire at the Elf. Or we could just Kamano, and that deals 1 to all the Planeswalkers and to Corey. So that's probably the better play, and we're going to go for that. We get another Thopter. We're up to 4 Thopters. And then Karn takes 1. Kiora takes 1. Corey takes 1.
Very nice little piece of text on that Kumano, trying to fight back against the Planeswalker Scourge a little bit. And let's make sure everything is resolved. Does Kumano not deal damage to Planeswalkers?
No, it definitely does. Can we go stop that real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. He hit the ability. Corey should took 1. The Planeswalkers each take 1 damage. We'll get that fixed for you in just 1 second.
Before players get too deep.
So Kamano deals 1 damage to all Corey's Planeswalkers. Okay. And it resolved the ability to do 1 to player, and you can't resolve half an ability. That's why.
We see, all right, here's our players taking a look at the card, and Corey's going to have to revise his entire turn with this knowledge that he does not have a Karn available.
All right, so after we fully resolve the Kamano, it's off screen slightly, but it did get cast last turn. It's going to go back Corey's way. No more Karn the Great Crater, but does still have a ton of mana. Devotion with Nykthos, Kiora, and it looks like he drew a Storm the Festival last turn off of the Kiora draw. So we are off to the races. Nykthos for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 mana, 14 if Wolfwell Haven's down there, which it is. I believe that's 14. Right. We got the Kiora, which we can go down to 12, up to 26. And then with 26 mana, I feel like you can win the game somehow, right?
Right. This Storm the Festival, if that is what Corey has, can be cast and flashback this turn at no cost to Corey. There we see Kiora actually untapping the Nykthos, and then Corey deciding not to activate it, preferring to get some more devotion in play before that happens.
All right, we need to stop this too, because Cityscape Leveler can't get grabbed off of the Storm the Festival.
Oh, the players have it.
Yeah, players got it. We're just making my director run back and forth. Unfortunately, it's not all permanents. It's just permanents that cost 5 or less. Corey, relatively new to Pioneer, has been playing a little bit of this mono green deck, but I think everyone puts the Cityscape Leveler into play the first time, right?
Right.
I think that because I've seen multiple people do that.
Right. That's because through the history of this deck, that is the only card that's basically been added to these flex slots that's not been a hit off Storm the Festival. Right. So it's a pretty unfamiliar feeling. But Leveler, still great. A great value piece, able to interact in a way that a lot of your cards can't.
All right, Corey gonna spend 10 before activating Nykthos. He's trying to get in most devotion so that the second activation of Nykthos can get more mana. We're gonna be
And I see some
oh
planeswalkers.
yeah. This is another Cure and another Karn. So this should be lethal with the backup Karn and Cure in the graveyard. What we
Right.
get to do is Restorative Burst, add infinite, and that's going to allow Corey to essentially gain infinite life, infinite resources, infinite mana, and ultimately kill in whatever way he wants. Don't brain your whole deck. Sometimes they use Cauldron, Pestilent
Pestilent
Cauldron to
Cauldron.
deck your opponent or whatever, but
Right.
we have the kill, and it's just going to be Corey explaining it or figuring it out himself, and once he does, Joey Lunds is going to be down a game.
Starting off with Nykthos. As much mana as anyone could ever need. And yeah, personally, I like the Stone Brain to end the combo kill. With the Chain Veil, you end up with uh, as many card activations as anyone could want, and you can just take every single card out of your opponent's deck. That's also pretty fast resolve in paper, and Joey sees the writing on the wall,
Yeah.
picks up his cards.
I think Corey just says, I think I'm going to go infinite here with the Chain Veil. I'm going to go Kiora. We're going to untap the Chain Veil 4 times. That means that we're going to activate Karn a million times.
Right, and Joey says, you know what, this time I'm convinced.
All right. Well, as players are shuffling up here for game number 2, I want to talk a little bit about the mono green sideboard. And, I think I might have perpetuated this meme
Yeah.
a little bit a few years back with throwing up my hands and yelling, no changes. Right? And that was one of the big reasons to play mono green devotion is you don't have to worry about sideboarding.
Right, but that's a bygone era, and as this deck has become entrenched in the Pioneer competitive metagame, players have found these small optimizations. Actually, in a lot of matchups, you'll see mono green players taking out one or two cards for some tools that they find are better in their main deck than in their sideboard.
Right, such as Ratchet Bomb or the Silex. I know that
Right.
was the one our friend Zach used to beat me playing for the invite at the RCQ in Roanoke a few months or about a month ago.
Exactly. In was it this exact matchup?
Yeah. Oh no, I was playing the Boros Convoke deck. It was way worse. Like
Right.
the Ratchet Bomb blew up like 6 of my Goblin tokens from Kuldotha Rebirth or the Gleeful Demolition or whatever.
Right.
And yeah.
So we'll see what Corey elects to bring in here. But moving over to Joey Luntz's Boros sideboard, of course the Gigantha the Wellspring Companion, and then we see 2 Destroy Evil, 2 Redain God of the Worthy, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Wedding Announcement, 2 Invasion of Gobakan, 1 Strangle, and 3 Rending Volley.
Yeah, nice little package there. Raidan seems like it's decent in the matchup. Slows down those big payoffs. It also flies,
Right.
which is nice. But what do you think?
Well, the Destroy Evils here, Cavalier of Thorns and Old Growth Troll are a little bit resilient to destruction effects like that because they both have beneficial triggers. But a lot of the time, if you're able to output enough pressure with this Boros deck, Destroy Evil taking out one of those blockers can be just enough to get over the finish line.
Yeah, I quite like it against Wolf Haven draws as well.
Right.
It's a 2 for
Destroy
2 trade,
Enchantment.
but it's not great. But it's like it has targets, right?
Exactly. And a lot of the time on mono green, you could keep some speculative hands that are based on having some guaranteed mana and just get that taken out from under you if that's the way Joey goes.
All right. Well, as these players are shuffling up here for game number 2, both doing the pile shuffle just to count. This is no longer sufficient randomization. That was a rule change about
yeah.
5 years ago now or so. Pile shuffling used to be the schmoove. Everyone would do pile shuffling, but nowadays you rarely see it. Only the old school heads do it.
Right.
Corey, one of those old school heads, even though he was always the younger guy in our gen, right? He was always baby Corey.
Right. Looking up to his brother, and like you said yesterday, taking down all the North Dakota State championships.
Yeah. I said he won 5, and when I had told him at dinner last night what I said, he goes, "Nuh-uh." I was like, "What? Was I wrong? Did you only get 4?" And he goes, "Uh-uh." And he held up 6.
Yeah, 6 fingers.
Oh man.
And how many did Brad win?
Look, I don't
Not
want to
as
talk
many.
about it. I don't want to talk about it. Fewer.
I bet Corey does though.
Yeah, I do too. Look, that brotherly rivalry is what shot both of them to success, I believe. So
Right.
that good-natured rivalry at States, I'm sure, has fueled Brad in his career. And now, after crushing Player of the Year, multiple Pro Tour top 8s, on the cusp of Magic Hall of Fame before it dissipated into the ether, And now working on MTG Melee, a wonderful program that's going to be used in most Magic tournaments from here on out, I believe.
Right, Brad and Corey both making it to the top of the mountain, more or less, and we see a mulligan for Joey here. Corey decides to keep his opener on the play.
All right, Joey's going to need a little bit of help here. The Runaway Steamkins are supposed to be specifically for this matchup, and if he has one in his opening hand, I'm just begging him, please, please, Joey, play it on turn 2.
And yeah, mono green here. I'm sorry, I believe I said Corey was on the play. That's not the case. He
No,
won game one. Boros will be on the draw out of Joey's hands.
You just said Boros will be on the draw.
Oh.
There you go.
What am I talking about?
I don't know, man. We need to get you some coffee.
Yeah,
Yesterday was a long day, you know?
You might be right. Boros good here. Start out fast.
Yes,
Something
go,
like that.
Go quick. Play ones. 1 and 2. All right, here's a mulligan. We're going to put one on the bottom. Mountain for Joey Lunds. We have a Monastery Swiftbeard Bangy for 1.
Room.
Corey Baumeister's away. Let's see if he can match with a 1-drop of his own.
Up.
It's Oath
Ooh.
of Nissa. Not quite as strong, but here it's still pretty good. Gonna be digging for something. Finds Elf, a couple of lands. One's a Beseiju. The Beseiju unlocks him from Chain to the Rocks, which is one of Boros Pia's strongest cards against this Mono Green Devotion deck.
Right, and that's something I take joy in when playing mono green. Leyline Binding, Chain to the Rocks. I love getting my creatures back. Out from
Yeah,
under those.
I remember your PTQ win or your RCQ win. You had 3 Beseiju in your deck, right?
Right, yeah, that was a tech choice for that. It was a Sunday RCQ, and the Saturday before, I had seen a lot of the Karuga decks and Bring to Light decks with all these enchantments in their deck. And I decided to add the 22nd land and play a third Beseiju, and got paid off. I just love interacting with Leyline Binding.
All right, we got a little bit of Judge Call. I think Corey's asking a rules question or something. You know, a lot of these cards are foreign and borrowed, and maybe just like wants the complete text on Beseiju, or wants to know the rules text of a card in Joey Lunds' deck,
Right.
because he's relatively new to the Pioneer scene. His primary format that he plays on stream and everywhere he goes is modern. He's known for
Right.
that Jeskai Breach deck, but now with the Pioneer event, like, he's having to essentially learn a whole new world. And honestly, that's one of the coolest, most fun things about Magic is these formats just allow you a great amount of exploration and like
Right.
discovering some of those things that you and I think is common knowledge or whatever, right? But
Right.
him like seeing or discovering those things for himself, it's really awesome. It's really
Right. There's always more to discover in Magic, including the text of the Chain Veil.
great. All right, what do you want, Corey?
It's a tough Oath of Nissa, it looks like. Corey studying his opponent, figuring out what he might be weak to.
Just really in the tank, because he does have a Llanowar Elves, but if he spends his turn 2 casting Llanowar Elves and it gets killed, maybe that's bad. But it looks like he has enough land, so he's just going to take the Elf and put it in hand. We're back Joey Lunds' way. Let's see if he wants to deploy that Runaway Steamkin or start playing those draw effects like he did last game. And he's going to do a draw effect again. I just really, I'm going to have to talk with him after this. I put it in the deck so that you play it first. You play that one first. It's the way to generate mana. That's the whole point. Anyway, Joey Lunds finds a 4-drop and a 2-drop. We're back Corey's way. We're going to play Wolfwell Haven in your go. Can't play that Showdown this turn. Can play the Rend Resolve.
Right, and we see Joey also did pick up a Chain to the Rocks there. We'll be ready for the first threat out of Corey's deck. And missing on lands out of this second Reckless Impulse, Sacred Foundry coming in tapped, and just an attack with Monastery Swiftspear.
The Runaway Steamkins, I don't want to harp on them too much. I added them to the deck because this Boros Pia deck is not your traditional aggressive deck.
Right.
It actually wins longer games very well, and it wins shorter games much more poorly. And so when you play against a matchup like Corey's playing Mono Green Devotion, they're not interacting with you, so Steamkin is just like left unfettered.
Right.
But also, you just need some way to explode, and you have to kill them in some spots. And the card advantage effects, like the Reckless Impulses and those things, they're mostly there to fight the Thoughtseize and the Fatal Pushes and push through the control decks.
Right.
Whereas against Mono Green Devotion, drawing 2 cards, you're just like playing right into their game plan. And so you
Right.
have to have that hinge card. You have to have a Pianalar on the table. You have to have a Runaway Steamkin on the table so that you can leverage all of those spells you're casting.
Right, and now we see on Corey's side one of my favorite curves, turn 3 Kiora plus an Old Growth Troll. getting a card and a blocker down. And we also saw in Corey's turn, his land drop for the turn was a Beseiju who endures. So here's my guess on that Oath of Nissa earlier. Corey was looking at a land and a Llanowar Elves and thinking, I could take this third forest and that could allow me to hold the Beseiju for a Chain to the Rocks. Ultimately, I elected to take an extra Llanowar Elves, and as a result, had to play Beseiju as a land.
All right. Well, Joey Lynn's going to be casting another one of those reckless draws. This deck rarely runs out of steam, and now it's just up to Joey to find a way to use all these extra cards before they disappear, like a puff of smoke.
And I think, well, Joey has some options here. Could Chain to the Rocks, and may not have a 1 mana follow up. Do you still see a Pia and that Runaway Steamkin? Joey kind of feels like he's in a bind against this Old Growth Troll.
All right, let's see what he wants to do. He has Chain of the Rocks for the Troll, and he can attack the Cure for 3 if he wants. Instead, just going to go for the Pia. I think this is a fine play. And we're going to go back to Baumeister's Way. Draws. Has a potentially explosive turn if he has a Nykthos. If he doesn't have a Nykthos, still has access to 5 or 6 mana, maybe a little more, thanks to the Cure on tap. See what he wants to do.
Looks like Corey does have a Karn. There's a couple options you can go for out of the sideboard. If Corey does jam a Karn this turn, a lot of the time I think he's going to be setting up for a future turn, coming with a Haymaker such as either Cityscape Leveler or Sky Sovereign Console Flagship. Starting out with 4 mana off Kiora, 5 for a Cavalier of Thorns.
All right, we're going to draw a card off the Kiora, and we're going to resolve the Cavalier's ability. Looking for Nykthos. Doesn't find Nykthos, doesn't find a land at all. 5 to the graveyard. And now, let's see if he has anything to do with this last little bit of mana. It's always a big sag to whiff on the Cavalier of Thorns, right?
Right. Like, this card's great. Why can't it always be great? This time it's just good.
Yeah.
Come on. It only drew me a card?
And it's a 5/6 blocker. It's not bad.
Yeah.
All right, Corey here. We know he has a Llanowar Elf, so he has something to do with this 1 mana. If he has another Oath of Nissa, he might want to burn it so that he looks for a land to play, more of like a tempo game, like sacrificing the potential to play the elf for a chance to hit a land drop and play the elf.
Right.
Goes
And
for elf.
the elf does come down. Starting off with a land for Joey.
Yeah, and that's going to trigger the Pia. And let's see how many times he can trigger this turn. Let's see what he can do. Hand is Runaway Steamkin. Maybe some draw spells. We know there's a Chain to the Rocks and a Steamkin in there.
And we're really starting to get to the point with this Boros deck. Once you have 5 mana, you can start chaining together spells pretty creatively, right? And Joey looks like one of the Haymakers, a Showdown of the Scalds.
Yeah, this is going to flip off 4 cards off the top of the deck. We're going to show down on the screen for you in just a minute. But you get 4 exiles from the top. And then on your second chapter, every time you play a spell, you get a +1/+1 counter on target creature. You can still play the cards for 2 total turns, but not 3. Not the whole time it's out. And so this turn and next turn, those 4 cards can be played. Looks like a pair of Soulscar Mages, a Monastery Swiftspear, and a Sacred Foundry.
And Joey looking to just get more threats onto the battlefield with this Soulscar Mage. Creating another Thopter. Not going to be able to pressure Kiora very well through that Cavalier of Thorns. And Corey will untap.
Yep, and that's always scary, letting Monogreen untap with so much devotion. Luckily for Joey Lunds, there's no Nykthos just yet. Corey only limited by that fact. Hand is full. Ton of stuff to do already.
Corey definitely wants to make sure he plays out this turn as efficiently as possible. Like I said, the resources really starting to pile up for Joey. He could break through at any moment with a Runaway Steamkin plus that Showdown chapter next turn.
Yeah, and I think that that'll be what happens. If Corey doesn't find a way to win this turn, I think Joey's going to do some serious damage next turn. And you're going to really see Steamkin kind of go ballistic thanks to the counters from the Showdown. As long as Joey has a couple more ways to draw cards, or even just one more way to draw cards, it can chain to more.
Right.
And with Steamkin, you just get, a bajillion mana. And then every time you play something from Exile, you get a Thopter from Pia. That, and they all have haste, so it really adds up.
Right. All right. Starting off with 4 mana off Kiora and Karn the Great Creator.
All right, let's go looking. We can get
Corey knows what he wants, it looks like.
Haywire Might seems okay, right? Stops the ooh, filigree Silex. I can kill token, so we can wait to all the Thopter tokens come down, and then we can blow them up.
Right. It's interesting that that definitely seems to be what Corey's prioritizing is a swarm of Thopters in the air. Um, definitely afraid of the showdown counters stacking up on those Thopters maybe and being able to even overpower Cavalier of Thorns. But Filigree Silex will take care of that problem.
Well, it looks like Joey actually drew a second Chain to the Rocks, so I
Oh boy.
expect fireworks this turn from Joey Lens. Let's take it one piece at a time. Where do you want to start, Joey? You want to play this Runaway Steamkin and start generating mana? Or do you want to just use your mana in more efficient ways with Monster Swiss Spear, a couple Chain of the Rocks, and actually get in a big attack?
And one of the bottlenecks on a turn like this can be that white mana, right? With Steamkin only providing red. But it looks like Joey has plenty at his disposal with another Sacred Foundry in exile.
That's true. A tough turn for Joey. These are always the most complicated. I'm one of those people who I'll just kind of play stuff at random because mapping it out is just
Yeah.
impossible. It's not maybe impossible, but it's extremely difficult because every time you play one of those reckless draws, you just
Right.
have more information, more cards, and so just gotta start somewhere. Steamkin's a good place to start, but Joey disagrees. We're gonna play a Swiss Spear, make another token. What else? We're gonna attack with everybody. We're just separating into piles of things that are gonna get blocked or killed, or that can attack.
I think Joey's lining up these Thopters before they get too out of hand. And here come the dice for Showdown of the Scalds.
Okay, so one counter gonna go
Let's
on
make
a
sure we
Monster
use
Swiss
those
Spear.
coverage dice. There we go. Thank you to our spotter.
Okay. Big turn here for Joey. Gonna play Soulscar Mage. Just gonna put another counter on something. And get another Thopter. Now here's the thing. Corey actually doesn't have to blow the Filigree Silex on Thopters. If Joey doesn't
Right.
present like a really like a lethal attack or whatever, Corey can actually take it up to 1, and then next turn he can blow up both Chain of the Rocks, all the 1-drops from Joey's side of things. You know, there's 2 Swiss Spears, 2 Soulscar Mages. Obviously, the Thopters, the pressure that's coming across this turn, there's a good chance that Joey actually just kills Corey this turn. I'll be interested to see if that is what comes to fruition here.
Right. And definitely, like, yeah, as you were saying that the Chain of the Rocks coming down, probably tempting Corey a little bit to do everything in his power to save the Filigree Silex, if at all possible, because getting a free Cavalier of Thorns to start next turn could be pretty juicy.
That was a pretty bad reckless impulse. Finds 2 lands, and we've already played a land for the turn.
Counting up our prowess triggers.
All right, we have another Chain of the Rocks we can play as well. That'll put a counter on stuff. We're gonna go
Actually,
attacking.
I suspect we might not actually have that Chain to the Rocks.
Okay, maybe it was a different white card sideboard. Maybe Destroy Evil or something.
Could be. And everything is coming across, maybe at some Planeswalkers. Hard to say.
My guess is everything's face. Okay, we'll see how Corey wants to defend here. He still has Old Growth Troll to block. Maybe it's a chump block in this scenario, but that could give him more mana for next turn. And since he doesn't have Nykthos, maybe that's good.
Right. Start charging up more auras on that forest for Kiora to untap.
Right. We know that Corey has the potential to check all these Thopters with just popping the Silex, but maybe wants to try to block in such a way where he doesn't die, and then he can start the turn off by popping the Filigree Silex on 1 to get back Cavalier of Thorns. He'll lose some elves, and he'll lose that. I think that's what he's doing. He's going for a chump block with an elf. So maybe, and he's not popping to stop the Thopters, so he's just going to take 2, 7, 8, 9, put him down to 6.
Right, and
he's going to look for Nykthos and go for the kill next turn.
exactly. That's really what you're looking for off this Cavalier. The Silex is gonna take some devotion off the battlefield, gets him back with the Cavalier, but six more looks, counting the Kiora off this Cavalier at a Nykthos, could really mean that Corey ends the game this turn. We'll see where he wants to start.
Okay, we're going to float mana. We're going to start with a Plukernos. We're going to draw. Found the Nykthos.
Very
What?
nice.
That's a heck of a draw.
And we're also at the point now where this first Nykthos plus the Cura is plenty of mana, and then if Corey does want to pop that Silex, we could find a third activation of Nykthos on this turn, which really just means the sky's the limit.
All right, looks like we're making 10 mana here. Kiora can put that up to 18, and then Karn with 18 mana starting from this spot. Seems like it's very close to lethal, if not lethal.
Right.
And hand's still full of juice too, man.
And the other part of the Buffalo on this Cavalier of Thorns, milling some more cards could get us closer to duplicate Planeswalkers to really guarantee the kill off Karn the Great Creator.
All right, we're going to go ahead and play some of these old growth trolls, these green pipped heavy 3-drops, because with Nykthos they are essentially free before you activate it the second time, as long as you're floating at least 2 mana.
Right, and I did see a second Kiora drawn for Corey, which is a boatload more mana off the Nykthos, and also gets him one step closer to guaranteeing a combo. I believe with multiple Kioras, just the Chain Veil will be enough to get you past that threshold if Corey decides to go that route with all this devotion.
Okay, looks like we're spinning. No. Okay, yeah, we have
Charging
18.
up our dice.
18 mana for Corey here. He has another Cure in hand too, so he can just really juice it. I'm curious if he has a Storm Festival in the graveyard. I don't know that it's even necessary. This Chain Veil here
Right.
is probably good enough. When you have the ability to untap with Kiora multiple times on the Chain Veil, then if you have a backup Kiora, that Kiora ends up generating Nykthos, which is 70-ish mana.
Exactly.
Karn can go up, down, up, down, finding whatever. Specifically Restorative Burst,
And
Pestilent Cauldron.
Corey has the opportunity at this point to use up some extra Kiora activations on the Chain Veil and presents his hand to Joey, who will concede at the face of this extra Kiora, and Corey takes it down to improve to 2-0.